This is something that happened years ago now. It all started one day when I went on Facebook and saw that I had a new friend request. It was from a woman who I didn't know. We did have a mutual friend, which was somebody that I was barely friends with, but lived in the area. I accepted her request without giving it too much thought. I did not click on her profile to learn more about her or anything. Later in the day, though, I noticed that she sent me a message on Facebook. I logged back on and saw that she said hi to me. I responded saying hi back to her, and after that we had a brief conversation. The conversation that first day was not too long, just kind of back and forth getting to know each other. But the only thing that this woman really told me about herself was that she was my same age and that she worked in a nearby city. She seemed pretty nice for the most part though. That night, I thought that I saw her at my house. This was probably like 3 hours after our conversation on Facebook. I noticed this car parked across the street from my house on the side of the road. It was an unusual thing to see, and I just randomly noticed it. But when I did, I also saw that there appeared to be a woman in the driver's seat of the car, and she looked an awful lot like the woman messaging me on Facebook. This was really weird. I moved away from the window so that she wouldn't see me. Then I wondered to myself if this woman was possibly one of my neighbors, or if she was at my house for some reason. A short time later, I checked the window again, but she was still there in her car. I thought about messaging her on Facebook, but decided not to. A while later, when I checked the window again, the car was gone. For the rest of that night, I was left wondering what exactly that was about. I was creeped out by this, and decided to stop messaging her. But the next day, she messaged me again. We had kind of ended our conversation the previous night. When I had told her that I had to go because I was cooking dinner, she said okay. Then I had not said anything back to her. But now, on this day, she said, "Hey, what's up?" to me. I didn't respond, but just a couple of hours later, she said, "You there?" I finally responded. I asked her what was up, and she asked me how I was doing. After I said good, I asked her what city she lived in. She named a city that was close to mine, but not the same one. This ruled her out as being one of my neighbors. I didn't want to mention that I saw her parked on my street the previous night. I continued with the conversation for a short time, but then the woman asked to meet up with me. She said a time and day, but I told her that I was busy. She continued to message me and then started to become rude. The woman seemed to be upset that I declined her request to meet. I then confronted her, saying that I saw her at my house the previous night, but she completely denied it. At that point, I blocked her. This was just too weird, and I wanted to put it behind me. When I blocked her, I did feel better, but I also knew that she seemed to know where I lived. I had a feeling that she might show up again, and unfortunately, I was right. That very same night, she was back. This time, though, she knocked on my front door. I was in the kitchen when I heard it, and I think it was about 8 p.m. I walked over to the front door, and after looking out and seeing the woman, I moved back. However, after she knocked again, I heard the woman then shouting at me that she knew I was home. She demanded that I let her in. I went to the door, and without opening it, I shouted that I was calling the police if she didn't leave. But this didn't stop her. She stayed at my front door, occasionally knocking on it. When I realized that she wasn't leaving, I did call the police. I stayed in my living room near the front door. The woman remained there the entire time. About 15 minutes later, the police got there. I heard the woman arguing with them for a while. Eventually, though, they got her to leave me alone. She was told that if she came back to my property again, she would be arrested. I was afraid that she would, but luckily, after that, I didn't see her again. I really don't know what her problem with me was. I also don't know how she even found me in the first place. After this happened, I contacted the one mutual friend that I had with the woman to find out more. Like I said, the mutual friend that we had was a guy that I barely knew. We had gone to high school together but never really talked much. We knew who each other were though. When I asked him, he told me that he honestly had no clue when he became friends with the woman or who she was, so I didn't really get much clarification there. I'm just happy that the woman actually left me alone after that. I've had a Facebook account for many years now. I think that I made one when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and this is something that happened back then. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but I know I was a teenager. So I would go on Facebook all the time, probably several times a day on average. Well, one time, I ended up getting hacked. The way I found out was that I got a text from one of my friends from school. She told me that she thought my account had been hacked. I logged into Facebook and saw that my account had made several bizarre and random posts late the previous night. Some of them were as if somebody had just dragged their hand across the keyboard and hit send. Others were strange sentences of words that didn't really make much sense. I was really embarrassed. There were even a few comments from friends with question marks on some of the posts. I didn't know who would do this to me or who would know my password. As I scrolled down on my page, I saw that there were even more posts that were made from my account. I quickly changed my password, then looked at them. Most of the posts were made within a 2-hour window the previous night, from about midnight to 2 a.m. There were about 20 posts in total. Then I got to one of the first ones that had been made. This post was the only one with a photo attached to it. It was a picture at nighttime of the house that I lived in. At the time, I lived there with my parents and 2 older siblings. The post said, "This is where I live, everyone." It looked like the photo had been taken from our driveway, possibly the street. When I saw that, I was so creeped out. But since I changed my password, whoever this was would not have access anymore. I quickly deleted every post that they had made on my account. Then I wrote a post saying how my account had been hacked the previous night, and the posts were not made by me. But after that, I never found out who did it. I asked several friends, wondering if it was a joke or something, but they all denied it. I've even asked some of them years later, but nobody ever admitted it. And to be honest, I just don't think that it was any of my friends. It could have been someone I went to school with possibly, or somebody that I don't know at all. I never found out. But the fact that they seemingly were at my house after midnight really gives me the creeps. This is the story of when I lost my phone at a park several years ago. It all happened one night when I was running. I would do lots of jogging for exercise, and this one park in particular was my favorite to go to. It was about a 10-minute drive from my apartment, but it had miles of trails, and I found that hardly anybody else was ever there. One time though, when I was jogging, my headphones died when I was almost done. This is probably why I didn't realize I dropped my phone, because my music wasn't on, and I would have noticed it turning off. I would always jog with my phone in my left pocket. It must have just fallen out or something. I was kind of surprised that I didn't notice. When I got home that night is when I realized that I didn't have my phone with me. I realized it could have been anywhere on the trail. I first looked in my car, but when it wasn't there, I drove right back to the park. I retraced my steps and spent about an hour trying to locate my phone, but I couldn't find it. I wasn't sure what to do. I really needed my phone, so the next day I went and I bought a cheap one to use until I either found my phone or decided that I would have to get another one. The next day after work, I went back to the park again. I looked again, but came up empty. I was almost certain by now that somebody must have picked it up. Then, later that night, I was on Facebook. I was on my laptop, just on my homepage, when I came across this post. It had been shared quite a few times, and I saw that somebody had posted they found an iPhone. It looked like mine, so I clicked on the post. This person said that they found an iPhone in a park and were trying to locate the owner. They asked people to share the post in hopes that the owner might see it. The phone was locked, so they said they couldn't find out who it belonged to. Right away, I contacted the person who made the post. It was a guy named Rob. I told him that I was sure this was my phone, and I asked him if I could meet him to get it back. He said yes, and suggested that we meet at the same park where I lost it. I was more than fine with that, but when he said to meet at midnight, I was confused. Of course, that instantly made me curious and also suspicious. I asked him why and said that that was really late. The guy claimed that he worked odd hours and was really busy. He said that that was literally the only time that worked for him. I ended up saying fine, because after all, it was a Friday and I didn't have work the following day. Still, I was very suspicious of Rob. Now, when the time came, I drove to the park that night. In the entrance of the park, there was a parking lot which was empty. Then there was a little bit of a field, several entrances to paths, and lots of woods. So I parked my car at about 11:50. Nobody else was there, so I waited. At midnight, I contacted Rob, saying that I was at the park. This was the only parking lot, so I knew he would have to come here. He did not immediately respond to me. I kept waiting and was getting more and more frustrated by the minute. Then I got a message from Rob. He told me to come to the path and said that he had walked there. This confused me even more, but I really wanted my phone, so I got out of my car and looked around. It was completely silent other than leaves rustling in the wind. I took a few steps towards the path. It was in that moment that I saw what appeared to be two large men coming out of the woods. They were walking in my direction, but a long ways away. By now, I was probably like 50 feet away from my car. As soon as I saw these two guys, I started sprinting back for my vehicle. When I got there, I did not bother to look back to see where the men were. I instantly left, driving away and out of the park. I went all the way back home. When I got back, I went onto Facebook and was going to message Rob. I saw that his previous message had been deleted. I sent him an angry message, accusing him of setting me up, trying to rob me, and I said that I was going to the police. He responded denying it, claiming that he was just running late and would be at the park soon. I called the police. I told them the entire story and showed them the messages on my phone. Then I asked Rob to send me my phone in the mail. He was hesitant and claimed that he couldn't do it. However, the police contacted him after that. After they got involved, he finally gave me my phone back. Unfortunately, there was no proof that Rob got those guys to come towards me in the woods. I believe 100% that he was setting me up to get robbed or something. I blocked him not long after. Hopefully, I'd never see him again. Like many people, I have used Facebook for years. I've had an account since I was in high school. This is something that happened maybe 5 years ago though. Over the years, I've accumulated about 1,000 friends on Facebook. No, I don't know all of them in real life. Sometimes I just get random requests and end up accepting them. So one night, I remember going on Facebook after seeing several notifications. I would post on Facebook here and there, sometimes with pictures and things like that. Well, some guy commented on about 10 of my posts. Many of the comments he left were somewhat creepy. I clicked on his profile, and there wasn't a lot of information, but based on his picture, and seeing that we didn't have any mutual friends, I did not know him at all. Still, he was on my friends list. I honestly couldn't remember ever accepting his friend request, but I guess that at one point I must have. After seeing his comments, I deleted him as one of my friends, and then deleted his comments as well. But the very next day, I saw on Facebook that I had a message request from somebody. After looking, I noticed that it was the same guy. He was saying hi to me, and without even responding, I blocked him. Well, that wasn't the end of his harassment. Probably the next day, I got a message request and a friend request from a new account. I quickly realized, though, that it was the same man based on the profile picture, even though his name was different. He said hi to me, and I did message him back this time, but I only did to tell the guy to leave me alone. He didn't. He continued to send me messages, so I blocked this account as well. After that, I didn't hear from him anymore. I thought that was the end of it, but it actually wasn't. About 2 weeks after I had last heard from him, I got a Facebook message from one of my friends. I was told that there was a guy making creepy and terrible posts about me. When I was sent a link, I saw that it was the guy that I had blocked. I looked at his page, and he had made several posts talking badly of me. He called me several names, as well as posting my picture. The guy had to have been insane or something. I really didn't even know who he was. I reported him for this, as did several of my friends. Luckily, within a few days, the account had been taken down. I'm not sure if the guy took it down or if Facebook did. I'm sure that he violated some of their terms or something. Anyways, I'm just glad that he didn't know where I lived. After that, I never heard from him again. I still can't believe that it happens sometimes, though. To go through that much trouble to message me is crazy. Just a few months ago, I had a terrifying experience that I will never forget. It all started one night when I went on Facebook. As I was browsing the homepage, looking at posts from my friends and stuff, I got a notification of a new message. I clicked on it and saw that it was from a guy named James. I had worked with James a while back briefly. I didn't really know him that well, and had only spoken to him a few times at the job that we shared. I hadn't worked there in over a year though, and I didn't even know if he still worked there. James said hi to me, and I found it a little bit strange for him to randomly message me, but I said hi back to him. We got to talking a little bit, just catching up, or so I thought. But not long into this conversation at all, the messages from James started getting inappropriate. I stopped messaging him at that point, but he continued to send me more messages. It was at that moment that I decided to delete him as a friend. I wasn't even really friends with him in real life. I didn't know what got into him for him to randomly message me and then talk like that, but I figured that I wouldn't hear from him anymore. Several days went by, and I didn't. But then, one night, I was home by myself in my apartment. There was a random knock at my front door at 10 o'clock. I was not expecting anybody. I got up and walked over to the door. Before I opened it though, I decided to check through my peephole to see who was there. I thought maybe it was a neighbor, because who else would it be? But James was standing there. I found this to be really odd. How did he know where I lived? I never told him that. I chose not to answer, but he knocked again. I ignored this too. I honestly figured that he would probably leave after I didn't answer the door. I walked away and didn't hear any more knocking for a while. So I remember that probably 10 minutes later, I got up and went back over to the door. I expected James to be gone, but he wasn't. He was still standing there right outside of my door. And I think that he must have heard me walking to the door from the other side, because right after seeing him, he walked up to the door and tried to open it. The door was locked, so he didn't get in. Then I saw him go to his pocket and take something small out. He then went to the door and I believe started trying to pick the lock. As soon as I saw this, I took out my phone and I called for the police. I told them what was happening. They said they would be there as soon as possible. Then I went into my bedroom and locked the door. In case James broke in, I needed to get away from the front door. The police were fast to arrive. Within probably 5 minutes, they were at my apartment. James had not been able to pick my lock or get inside. I remember hearing them talk to James, and I came out of my room and saw that they arrested James for attempting to break into my apartment. I never really got an answer as to why he did it, or why then. Either way, I'm hoping to never see James again.